Now, the Moon administration's so-called Korean New Deal agenda lays out some ambitious plans for the environment, but it's been pointed out that it does not include a deadline for achieving net zero carbon. Now, it looks like that could be on the agenda, with the government planning to hold public hearings on the matter starting next month. Choi Jeong-yoon reports.
In mid-July, the South Korean government announced a Green New Deal, part of its recovery package to counter the impact of COVID-19. But the $61 billion plan has received criticism over the lack of concrete and specific goals to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions in Korea. Net zero refers to achieving an overall balance between greenhouse gases emitted and removed from the atmosphere, typically achieved through cutting emissions and transitioning to renewable energy. To raise awareness and understanding of climate change, New Zealand and the Pacific Island countries have shared experience and urged South Korea to actively set policies to reach net zero carbon in the near future. At a meeting held by the Global Green Growth Institute, experts said putting the target in the policy is vital. New Zealand's parliament passed a zero-carbon law last year, which will aim to make the country carbon neutral by 2050.
What that law does is it sets in place some really important structures to make sure that climate change can be viewed over the long term, and that any successive governments are, of course, bound by the law.
South Korea's ambassador for climate change said the Korean New Deal unveiled last July is not a final policy, but an evolving one.
As the 2050 net zero carbon plan requires fundamental change of a whole society, getting the public on board is necessary. The South Korean government will have 2 to 3 public hearings through September to October.
Calling the Moon administration to have a more committed attitude, Ban Ki-moon, the former UN Secretary General and the current chairman of the GGGI, said tackling climate change requires global-level cooperation.
Climate change is a defining issue for humanity and planet. It is a global issue. It is a transboundary issue. Thus, it requires whole of our cooperation and collective cooperation.
South Korea aims to make concrete decisions by the end of the year. Once the plan is legislated, it will set the grounds for annual carbon budgets, turning climate change into day-to-day politics. Choi Jeong-yoon, Arirang News.